Hello everyone, I'm here with Oscar Mata, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Prop 3 because I know a lot of people are very interested in politics but don't really know how to get involved, don't really understand what's on the ballot, so I want to make sure that you really understand what's going on. So thank you, Oscar.
Yeah, of course.
And so tell me, how did you get involved with this whole proposition?
So it's funny. I always tell people it sounds like a corny Utah joke, but it really started with a Republican and a Democrat walking into a Cafe Rio, where Brent Taylor, the North Ogden mayor, he had approached me. We had served on boards and committees together,
Okay.
and he reached out to me out of the blue, and we never had texted or really talked much before. And he said, "Hey, I would like to, go and sit down and talk to you about something." I'm like, "Oh boy, what could it be?" And
Yeah.
so we sat down and he said, "Some of the stuff you've been saying, I know you are in support of a study. I'm in support of a study. And, if you can bring the Democrats on board to, realize that we do need a study here in the county, I can bring the Republicans on board. We can get independents, and it's not something that only a select group of the Republican Party are trying to do to gain more power. It's not something the Democrats are trying to do to gain more power. It's a bipartisan initiative that everyone can get behind because it's about the people rather than special interest groups or a
Right.
party."
That's awesome because I know a lot of people are so worried about like Democrat versus Republican,
Yeah.
and it's become this huge thing. So it's really nice to hear that, because I always worry like when I say, well, I'm going to invite a Democrat to come talk to me, people are like, oh, they kind of like, some people get a
Yeah.
little bit like, well, I'm not even going to listen to this because that's not what I believe in. But I really like that this is a bipartisan proposition, so
Yeah.
everyone needs to listen to this. It's not just Democrats. So
Yes.
So good. So tell us a little bit about it. So I just want you to start from the beginning and tell me everything.
Well, it's funny. I just got a Facebook memory of when we first filed our petition 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that notification on Monday.
that's awesome.
And so, yeah, this whole thing started 2 years ago where, Brent and I, we were talking about this. And, it is interesting, because in politics, everything is so divided. And, Brent's this elected official who is a Republican. And even though he was in a nonpartisan seat, it's still, he was a, high-profile Republican in the party. And I had just stepped down as the executive director of the Weber County Democratic Party.
Okay.
So, and this was in 2017, so the year before, Brent was on one side and I was on the other, and we were fighting against each other. And so to come together, Brent and I thought, well, we need to bring people on board, and we reached out to a few Republicans, a few Democrats to see the interest, and there was interest.
Good.
People think that people thought that there was a need to study our form of government and see which form is best, and also make it something about the people rather than the commissioners putting it on. And so we were able to get State Senator Ann Milner, at the time State Representative Gage Frower,
Okay.
and also at the time Commissioner Carrie Gibson.
Okay.
We all kind of came together, and we were talking about it a little bit, and we said, well, because the way the law was written was that if the commissioners put it on the ballot, the 3 commissioners would get to pick who was on the study committee. And we thought that was, self-interest might, persuade them more than the good of the people.
Right.
Where if petitioners were able to go on there and get signatures, and Gage, Carrie, Brent, and I, we would have selected the study committee.
Oh, interesting.
And, we all agreed that we were a good group because in terms of politics, a lot of us can't agree on much.
You're very diverse.
Yes, other than that there needed to be a study. So we thought that, a diverse group is a lot better than a 3-member group that might be concerned about their paycheck.
Right.
And so what we did was we approached the county commission. They fought us tooth and nail on it. And we kept on collecting signatures. We were at just over 5,000 signatures collected. We needed 8,601, and the commission finally put it on the ballot themselves.
Good.
I think they realized that we weren't going anywhere and that we were building momentum
these guys
for
are not
this.
going away. They're going to be in our ear for a while now.
And so we started that process, and So that was kind of phase one of our group, Weber County Forward, was just getting it on the ballot. And I mean, the commissioners, again, it's self-interest. They really did not want this to come to fruition.
Right.
And so that was about August of 2018. And so Jan Zogmeister replaced Brent as the co-chair of the group. Jan is a former county commissioner, Republican. We wanted to keep it being a bipartisan group, and so we brought Jan on. So Jan and I started working with Bob Hunter from the Walker Institute.
Okay.
And Leah Murray, who's a political science professor at Weber State, and what they did is they started collecting research.
Okay.
Because the study committee, they have a whole year to gather research on the county, on different forms, what forms have worked in certain counties, what haven't. And that takes time and that takes money.
Right.
And Jan and I just thought, why waste that time and money when we've got a fantastic university here in Weber County, and they were more than willing to do it. So we had a lot of students gather, hundreds and thousands of documents for research, and we now have a decent chunk of the research that we can provide the study committee when this passes.
Oh, awesome.
And so, yeah, that was kind of our phase 2, and phase 3 is where we're in now, where I'm starting to get a few white hairs, and
the stress is real.
Yep. We've been putting up signs, we've been putting up town halls, and really just informing people what this is about. This isn't a one partisan issue, or I know the against people like to say that we have our own that we want to change the commission to a certain form, and I always tell people I have no idea what Jan Zogmeister's preferred form is.
Yeah.
And she has no idea what my preferred form is.
Yeah.
So there's no conversation or coordination of, well, we need to get the commission out so we can have a mayor council form.
Right.
Or an expanded commission. All we want is a study.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I tell people is you've got to look at the fact that the last time we conducted a study, I believe was in the early 90s. And the last time the study question was on the ballot was the late 90s.
Wow.
And since the late 90s, Weber County's population has grown by 27%.
Yeah.
We've become a lot more diverse in terms of ethnicity, political beliefs, religion, socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
And so, I tell people, if you're running a company, for 30 years and you don't kind of check yourself and say, hey, are we doing things right? Is this the best way to do it?
Right.
That company's not going to be terribly successful. And all
Right.
we want is, our goal is that Weber County residents deserve the best form of government available to them.
Yes.
And it could very well be the county commission.
Yeah.
But the commissioners don't know that, even though they like to say they do. And I don't know that. The only way we know that is through a comprehensive study saying, you know what, maybe the commission form isn't the best form, but in terms of our options, we think it's the better fit for Weber County than the other forms.
So can you tell us about our current form of government and how it actually works?
Yeah, so that's something that a lot of people ask, and a lot of people don't know that we even have a form of county government. But yeah, so we currently have a 3-member county commission, and that's kind of the default form that all counties are given.
Okay.
So like Salt Lake County, Morgan County, Cache County, Grand, Summit, all these other counties who have a different form, they've had to go through the same process to get there.
Okay. So this isn't an unusual thing to ask.
No. And so the current form we have is the 3-member county commission, and that's basically 3 members that are elected at large, and they have both legislative and executive powers.
Okay.
So they, essentially run the county. And some of the critiques of this form is that, well, with them being the executive and the legislative, there's no checks and balances. Right. They can, raise their taxes 100%, and there's no other branch of government to,
Say,
counter
hey,
that.
maybe that won't be a great idea for our residents.
Exactly. And a lot of and this was Brent Taylor's big issue was our founding fathers, checks and balances, separation of government, that was the foundation of our Constitution, and so that was something Brent had always had an issue with. And so there's some of that, you know. The other thing too, for the last 10 years, it seems like the only time the commission ever made the front page was, you know, the negativity, you know, them trying to backstab each other, or try to, you know, and stuff not getting done.
Right.
And, you know, the other critique we hear with the current form is that with a 3-member commission, well, all you need is the simple majority. So 2 people could be running a county that has over 250,000 people in it.
Those are big decisions for just 2 people to make.
Yeah, yep. And, you know, some people think with an expanded form, so that's one of the options is an expanded county commission. So,
Okay.
you know, it's the same thing. Those commissioners hold both legislative and executive, so you still don't have that separation of power, but you could have potentially, I believe it's 5 or 7
Okay.
members on an expanded county commission.
So you'd have to get either, like, you'd have to
Yo.
have like 3 people.
Yeah.
So at least you'd have another person.
Yeah, you know, and
To
the
sway that.
idea is, you know, there's more, you know, voices and decisions
Right.
being made.
Right.
And Morgan County is the only county that currently has that form.
Okay.
The other form is a manager-council form,
Okay.
and that is how a lot of cities, you know, are ran, where, you know, they have the city manager
Okay.
that runs the day-to-day stuff, but the council are elected and they help kind of drive the direction of the city.
Okay.
And the manager just kind of, you know, makes sure everything's plugging along to
Okay.
follow that idea. And so that would be the same thing.
Mhm.
So there are checks and balances in that way, where you have the manager is the executive role,
Okay.
and the council are they're the legislative role.
Okay.
You know, you know, that's one of the pros, is you finally get that separation.
Right.
You know, Bob Hunter from the Walker Institute, he was the Ogden city manager
Okay.
for a long time, and he always says, well, the nice thing I always had was being a city manager, I was kind of taken out of the politics, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
just I'm an employee. I'm not an elected official. I don't have to worry about, you know, inner party politics or, you know, anything like that.
Yeah.
He was just able to do his job and serve the people.
Right.
You know, the other thing with a manager is a lot of times those are people who have, you know, education or workplace background and history
Yeah.
in operating something like a government.
Okay.
You know, so that's some of the pros. You know, some of the cons, though, and these are some that we heard across our town halls, is a lot of people didn't really buy into the whole separation of powers, because even though, you know, manager handles the executive portion, the council gets to appoint the manager.
Okay.
You know, so
Yeah.
there, and this was especially a criticism in North Ogden that they kept on bringing up was, well, if the manager does something the council doesn't like, they can just fire him. And so there is kind of that, you know, knife hanging over the, you know, manager, so to
Yeah.
speak, to make sure that, you know, he doesn't do anything to upset the
Right.
council.
That ghostly guillotine following him around.
Yeah. And you know, and looking at the council in a manager council form, council members can be elected districts
Okay.
or at large or a mix.
Okay.
So I believe Grand and Summit County are the only counties that have this form.
Okay.
And so, you know, it could be all districts, and the council members, you can have 5, 7, or 9.
Okay.
So those are the ones you can have, and like I said, so we could have 9 districts, which might favor, you know, someplace like the Valley a little bit better, because,
Okay.
you know, they might have a bigger say if it's a smaller district. Or there can be some at large. So Wasatch County, that's another one that has a manager council form.
Okay.
And all their council members are elected at large.
Okay.
Or it could be mixed like Salt Lake County, where they have some at large and some districts.
Okay. And those will all be, so if those forms were recommended, then the people would be able to vote on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, and that was a big thing that we had to clarify at these town halls was, you know, the recommendation is not a, you know, 1-page paper saying, yeah, sure, go with the manager council form. It goes into, you know, if they do change the form, it would be, you know, yes, we want a manager council form, and the manager will make this much, the council members will be broken up this way, and salaries will be this much.
Okay.
Here's how the elections are going to stagger. If it's a 7-member council, 3 of them will be elected the same year. I guess not the manager, but if we were a mayor, that the mayor was, and 4 would be elected. In 2 years.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's going to be a large recommendation.
Right.
So expect more reading.
Yes.
But
that will require a little bit more investigation.
Yes.
So that will be good though.
Yeah.
It'll give us more to talk about.
Yep, exactly.
Fantastic.
And then the mayor council form is very similar to the manager council form.
Mm-hmm.
However, the mayor would be elected, so like Salt Lake County.
Mm-hmm.
And also the mayor has the authority to veto anything the council puts up,
Okay.
where a manager does not.
Okay.
Which again brings up the argument of checks and balances. Well, if the manager can veto something that he thinks the council's doing something wrong with, the mayor can.
Yes.
And so and some of the cons of the mayor is that again, we're bringing politics into the executive branch.
Right.
And so it's that's what the study committee is going to look at and kind of look and see, well, what's working, what's not.
Right.
So those are the different forms and some of the pros and cons about it.
Yeah.
Some of the other questions we had in the town hall was about cost.
Right.
In state statute, it says these study committee members cannot get paid. So these are volunteer positions. The only amount of compensation they could have is, if the study committee wanted to go down to Grand County and interview people and see how their form has worked, they are able to get reimbursed for gas or food and stuff like that.
And where would those funds be drawn from?
It would be from the county, so the county would cover it, but the funds would be minimal. I know the against people are throwing around an $800,000 figure, and the county commission, Jim Harwood threw around a $200,000 figure, and I'm working with Utah County and Tooele County that have gone through this process, and neither one of them have exceeded that.
Okay.
So the cost for this is going to be minimal because it's a volunteer work.
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind is Weber County Forward, in partnership with the Walker Institute, we've done a lot of the research.
Right.
We've done a lot of that work in hopes that it would cut down on cost and time for the study committee.
Okay, so do you have an estimated cost on what that would be?
So I don't have an estimated cost, but the thing that is said in state statute is, because some of the reasons that the people against say it could be larger is if the study committee, brings on a law firm to, help them. But in state statute, it says that the study committee has all resources from the county.
Oh.
So why would they hire a law firm if they've got the county attorney's office, at their, access?
Right. So will there be oversight of the committee to make sure that they are going through like the Weber County attorney instead of going and hiring some law firm?
So there's no oversight, but what I remind people is that these study committee members are selected by the appointment council.
Right.
And the appointment council, they are selected by our own elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are, so there is accountability because the people that are, kind of selecting the members who will serve in this process, these are people that we elected just less than a year ago.
Yeah.
And, I also think it's, I think going out and, racking up a bill, I think that's kind of, Washington's mentality and values.
Yeah.
Weber County, we are fiscally responsible people.
Right.
We're, hardworking, some of us are business owners and, really understand the value of a dollar.
Right.
And so any, accusations made that, this is going to, rack up a large number or that the, study committee is going to be reckless in the spending, I think it's frankly insulting to Weber County residents because I don't think that's our reputation here.
Right.
So,
I agree with you on that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really met anyone who's like, I think I'm just going to go blow lots of tax dollars here.
Yeah, I mean, they, like I said, they continue to do that in Washington, but,
yeah, unfortunately.
Here, we kind of understand the need for that, and, that's why, our in Weber County and in our cities, we're constantly rated, best managed, city, county, and stuff like that.
Right. Well, thank you so much for explaining the differences, because I think that is a big question of how is our government even run right now in the county. So I think that's important to understand, and the other options that are available. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so how are you hoping that this will be implemented?
So in terms of just after it passes?
Yes.
So so basically it follows state statute is how it goes. So assuming it passes, by Thanksgiving, there's going to be an appointment council.
Okay.
And that appointment council, their responsibility is to appoint the study committee.
Okay.
And this is due to Gage Frower put up a bill in 2018 that kind of tweaked some of the ways the appointment council is selected.
Okay.
But the appointment council is selected by the state legislative officers. So all of our state representatives, state senators who reside in Weber County, they get to pick half of the appointment council, and the county commission gets to pick half of the appointment council.
Okay. So both sides are going to be represented.
Yes.
Great.
Yep. Well, yeah, because the appointment council is a council of 5 members, and the way it works is the legislative officers, they pick one, the county commissioners, they pick one, and the 2 members they selected get to pick the other 3.
Oh, great.
So yeah, they get to kind of pick the 3 more members that get to serve with them. And then the study committee is selected. And the study committee, and this will be probably, I think, January 9th is the deadline when the study committee has to be selected.
Okay.
And there are certain rules on who can be on the study committee, and that is no elected officials can be on the study committee, and as well as any employees of Weber County, or anyone whose spouse is an employee of Weber County cannot serve on the study committee.
Okay.
And then they have a year after that to study and hold town halls and get feedback from the community.
Okay.
And then they provide their report.
Fantastic. So what would happen once the report is actually finished and given?
So if the report comes out and the study committee says, you know what, our current form is the correct form, then that's it. We just keep to our county commission form. If they do recommend one of the 3 other options, then then it goes back to the voters.
Okay.
The voters get to decide. So if the study committee says, you know what, we think an expanded commission is best, this is what their salaries are going to be, this is how it's going to be broken up, then it goes back to the voters. And the voters can say, you know what, we like this idea, it makes more sense, and if they pass it, then that becomes our new form. If they say, you know what, good try, but we don't agree, we think the current form is better than this form you're providing, then the current county commission form stays the same.
Okay. So really it is 100% up to local voters.
Absolutely. I tell people this all the time, that this is an initiative that is started by the people and ends with the people.
Yeah.
It is not no special interests or certain elected officials can really influence this process.
Yeah.
It really is open and transparent, and you guys get the final say on this.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, that's the best part about municipal elections, right? Is everyone has a say. So I want you guys, please, 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 make sure you are getting involved, being educated on what's out there, because this is where your vote really makes the biggest difference. I'm really excited to see what happens. I think it's a great idea. I personally am all for studies and finding out more about everything. Obviously, I'm here talking to you because I want to find out more. So I encourage you guys, get involved, see what you can do, and how can people get involved in their local politics?
So, obviously the best way to do that is to vote.
Yes.
But, I think reaching out to those who are running, I mean, if you go to your city website, every candidate that files has to provide an email address. Email those candidates. Email them the tough questions.
Yeah.
There's a few candidates that I know that are getting emails daily, and it's very exciting to see citizens who are passionate about their city, whether it's something major like downtown development, or something very small of, there's a stop sign that I don't think needs to be there, or there needs to be a stop sign at this, intersection. I like to use Ogden as an example. There's big ideas downtown wise, but when I would knock doors for Councilman Luis Lopez 4 years ago, the number one issue was backyard chickens, and I just
it always comes back to the chickens.
Yes, and I just think that's amazing, and that's why I love local politics. Is it's backyard chickens. It's not this national stuff that really divides us. It's it's the local stuff that unites us and also divides us a little bit.
That's true, but I think that's the great part too. Is if we can get involved at the local level, I think that's where change really starts to happen. If we can make changes in our city, then we can start making changes in our state, and then hopefully we can start making changes in our nation, which I know a lot of people want to see things improve for everyone, and I think this is your chance to really make that start to happen. So get involved, and thank you so much, Oscar. I really appreciate your help helping us all understand what Prop 3 actually is. So
and
get your ballots in.
Make a plug in. Anyone who still has questions, they can go to our website, WeberCountyForward.us.
Okay, I'll put that link in the comments so you guys can see that.
Perfect. Yeah, and there they can see some of those who serve on Weber County Forward and see how diverse our board is.
Perfect.
We have some answers to some frequently asked questions we have that we get. Kind of the story of how this all started. You can also visit us on Facebook. I've had quite a few people. They're messaging us questions, and they're actually really good questions that I've never even thought of. But I'm like, that's fantastic question. Here's the answer to that.
Are you posting those on Facebook? The questions
we're not, but we should.
Would you? Because I think that would be great. I think a lot of people do have questions, but I think they just don't know where to ask or how to ask. So that's what I love about social media, is we can get people more involved and more connected. So I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck. Make sure you get your ballots in. They have to be in the mail by November 4th. All right. Thanks so much for watching.